Hello and welcome back to Walkman Phones. Today I'm going to be doing a little review on the Palm phone. As you guys might have already known from when I unboxed this thing about a month ago, the Palm phone is a little phone that was released back at the end of 2018. It was exclusive to Verizon. You had to buy this phone as an accessory, more or less, and pay $350, I believe was the price, and tie it to a data plan for $10 a month. And the way it would work is your bigger phone, your main phone would ring, the Palm phone would ring. And it was basically meant for taking a break from your big phone. You didn't have a big screen, obviously, and battery life. I don't think there's much to be said. You can tell this doesn't have a big battery in it. That's not what it's meant for. I've always liked smaller phones ever since the days of flip phones. You know, back then, if you had a tiny Motorola phone or something along those lines, it showed that you were more advanced, funny enough. And now it's completely the opposite way. But I really like the smaller phones still. So I got a little excited when this came out and disappointed that Verizon was keeping it as an exclusive. Lucky for me, that little experiment failed. And nobody really wanted this phone because of the high price and the fact that you had to tie it to a data plan. And people, let's just face it, are addicted to their cell phones. And, well, I don't want to say addicted, but very tied in to social media, texting, phone calls. Just, it's become ubiquitous and a tool that everybody has now. You know, that it's not a special thing to have anymore. So people don't really want to take a break, you know, and I can't blame them. I'm the same. I don't want to take a break from phones. So basically what I did to get to it is I decided to have this little guy as my everyday phone for a month. Yep. And I just wanted to run it, you know. I like little phones, and I said, okay, I'm not going to use this as a regular phone, or I am going to use it as a regular phone because I like the form factor. Like I said, it didn't work out on Verizon, so what happened was Palm, not the old Palm, they just bought the name, so it's not the Palm from Palm Pilot and the Palm Pre, any of that stuff. It's a new Palm, but it's fitting. You know, they did a good job with this phone. I'm going to say that right out. A couple things to say about this guy. First of all, the biggest negative that I ran into so far, or right off the bat, I should say, is this phone has the worst SIM tray I've ever seen in my life. Here's what we'll do. We'll show you. It's a little gnarly, and it does not take a normal SIM card ejector, which was really, that threw me for a loop. I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't get the SIM card tray out because it uses a smaller hole than traditional phones do. So I'll show you what I did. And this came from looking this up, I believe. I forget the name of the channel that did this, but I know it was a guy named Merriam. I forget what channel he's from, but he did a video and he showed the thin piece of metal that you needed to use to access. It was basically like a staple. Okay, so I got this from a staple gun, obviously, and what you have to do is when you put this to go eject you have to be at an angle, right? Or get like some kind of curve to the metal, and kind of like you see here, a little bit more pronounced. There is no pushing in to make the SIM tray pop out. You literally have to pull the SIM tray out. Okay, not the easiest thing to do, not the worst thing in the world, but it'll definitely throw you if you just think you're gonna be, swapping out SIM cards real fast. So I wanted to mention that first and foremost. The phone itself, everything's been great, minus the battery life, which is, you have to know that going into this, that the battery life isn't going to be good on a phone like this. I've run it straight up, using it as a regular phone, how people would, checking every couple minutes, watching little videos on it, going on Twitter, Instagram, texting, calling, the whole 9 yards. What I have found is, and without Wi-Fi, you can run this phone for about 4 hours. And that's what you get. There's a mode on here. If I bring it down, you see that little palm tree. It's called life mode, right? Now, if you have life mode on, what'll happen is when the screen is off, you're not going to get notifications for anything. Nothing's coming through. Now, once you turn the screen back on, you'll see, okay, now your notifications are coming through, your text, your texts, your calls, all that's going to start to come through. I have not used this. Personally, I feel like you need your phone to tell you things, okay? Now, maybe if you throw it in a bag or set it across the room, you really don't want it to bother you and you just want the standby, maybe you can use it and it won't bother you in terms of completely interrupting notifications. I didn't find that to be a feature. I want to know when my texts come through. I want to know when my calls come through. But if you want that, that's there. I wanted to mention that. The charging, to get back to that for a second, it takes about an hour to go from dead to 100%. So that's not bad. The build quality of this phone, I've really liked. It's solidly built. It's basically a little iPhone. If we're looking at it, it's got the same camera setup and all the design cues. It's basically a little iPhone. Now, what is different, it has face detection, as you can see, to unlock it, which I think is pretty slick, to be honest. It's not the most secure in the world, obviously, but it works fast and it's accurate. So you don't really need to use the pattern or pin number system that you would typically use. The thing that I was starting to do, because I'm so used to fingerprint readers, was this little area at the bottom, this little light up pad area. A lot of times I would throw my finger on this thinking, okay, that'll unlock the phone. But most of the time the face detection system opened the phone anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. To get back to this a little bit, now this little area here, this controls your actions, let's call them, right? So how typically with Android, you'll have your back button, your home button, and your recent apps, where you hit the button and it brings everything back up. You can turn that off and just use this little pad area, right? And the way this works is if you long press on this, all your apps come up, right? Okay. Anytime you hit the button once, you're going back, no matter where you're at. So if you have Chrome open or any app, right, you want to go back one, you just hit that. You want to close it out, you go back, you hit that again, right? So I kind of like the system. I've gotten used to it. Like I said, it's taken me a little while here to get used to the actions, but it wasn't a steep learning curve. Some of your muscle memory from using other phones throws you a little bit, but it's not bad. Now we'll get to the UI here. As you can see, it's just icons. There is no fanciness to it. It's all icons, and you just scroll, and you get your apps. It runs every app that you can imagine, completely the same way you would figure. Your settings are down here, right? You go into your settings. This is running Android 8.1, okay? And here's where my complaint might come in a little bit. Since this phone failed as a accessory, and it's being sold unlocked, it's being sold unlocked right now on the Palm website, right? For roughly $300, I believe. They run deals here and there. They buy one, get one free deals and all this kind of stuff. There's been no word of if this is going to get updated at all. Now, I don't want to make that too heavy of a criticism because, like I said, it's such a skinned version of Android. Anyways, you're not really going to be getting a lot of the features that you would get from Android 10 or Android 9. Any of these more recent OS updates. What I have a little bit more of a problem with is, as you can see here, Android security patch level, March 1st, 2019. Okay. It's February of 2020. They need to put out another security patch. Let's just be real with that. Android is susceptible. We all know this. Security patches are a big thing now. Palm needs to issue another security patch for this. And I don't expect them to do it all the time because clearly they're not going to. But something needs to be done if they're continuing to sell this phone. Okay, what else do we have with this phone? The camera. Let's get into the camera a little bit. It's a nice little camera, I'm not going to lie. Not the highest megapixels, and I want to say it's 8. I'm sorry, I should have done the research, but I like the camera. It's easy to use, so we can go in here. It's got no OIS, obviously. It does have HDR. The shutter is fast. Things are clear. You're not going to be taking a lot of pictures with this phone. That's the thing. So as long as it's passable, I'd say you're all right. Very thin profile. Let me bring up the fact now that this is one of the more slippery phones that you'll ever run into in your life. It's basically a little pebble, and it's very slick, and I don't want to say it's unusable because it's not, because you get used to having a smaller phone, and literally you're bringing it back to the old days with, the size of it and the cell phone. The cell phones back from the 90s and the early 2000s that were tiny. So you're just kind of used to that at this point once you use it for a little while. What I did, I bought a case, okay? And you might be saying, well, who made a case for this phone that nobody has, that nobody cares about? It's a company called Supcase, and it's actually a really nice little case, and it gives it a little more, as you can see here, a little more substantial feel to the phone, right? You can see everything in the back. It's solid. You can drop this. I've dropped this phone a bunch because it's smaller and I lose grip of it sometimes. It's held up well. Brings me to my next point. You will lose this phone all the time or misplace it. Something about how small it is, and I don't know, I can't remember if back in the day I used to think that I lost my phone all the time, but I think I constantly thinking that I lost this phone or I can't find it. You don't feel it in your pocket. If you throw it in your jacket pocket or you have other things in your in your pockets, you lose track of it. It's just how it's going to be. But again, small gripe, and that could just be me, but I don't think so. Other little things about the phone. Well, since it's his Walkman phones, let's talk about music on this thing. There is no volume button, okay? That was left out. You get your power button, and that's the only button on the phone. So you have to go to the pull down menu and literally back and forth on the slider to get your volume, okay? It gets up pretty loud for being a small phone. You know, if you're watching videos or listening to music without headphones, it's pretty good, actually. It's surprisingly good. Now, the only issue that I see with it is when you do the headphones. Now, it gives you a USB-C port, so you have to use a dongle, right? We're all used to that at this point. The only problem that I found with it is when using apps like Spotify or Google Play Music or anything like that to listen to music, you do get intermittent hiccups and crackles here and there. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but you notice it. It doesn't happen enough where I'm going to totally bash the phone. I can forgive it for that. So I'm trying to think where else I was going to go with what else I have to say about this. You will get looks. I've had a ton of comments on this phone because people just, they're so used to looking at bigger phones now. This just throws people when they see it and you tell them that it's a full-fledged smartphone. And I've had a couple different comments. You know, I've had people ask me, you know, where's the rest of the phone and stuff like this. I've kind of gotten a kick out of it, but it's fun to tell the story. You know, the phones, like I said, have become such tools now that there's no real specialness to them beyond, you know, hey, the camera is amazing or this, that, and the other. The screen on this is nice and bright. It's LCD, but you get good visibility out of it, okay? Visibility is great. One other thing I wanted to mention. Yeah, if you go in here, I don't know if I can get it to do it because it doesn't come up very often. It's more like when it's not going to do it. It's kind of like when the face detection fails from what I've seen. And what you do is once the phone, I'm sorry, I can't get it to come up. Oh, here it is. Okay, perfect. So what you can do is draw on the screen to bring up what you're looking for. Okay, so it'll bring up different things, and you could say, okay, draw P. Oh, that was terrible. That looked like an R. Okay, so say you want to bring up Reddit. You tap on Reddit, and it'll say, okay, draw your pattern, and it'll bring up Reddit for you. So it's kind of slick. Like I said, it doesn't come up very often because usually you're right into the phone with the face detection. But it's a nice little feature. So I'm going to wrap this up here. If you guys have any questions, I know this was kind of a rambling review. I was kind of all over the place, and that's how I tend to be with my thoughts. But I really like this phone. I'm not going to lie. I didn't use it for a day or a couple days. I've had it for a month straight of using it. And to be honest, I'm going to continue with it. I like it that much. I'm very picky with my phones for the most part. And I'm always onto the new thing. Or I like to just have different options. And I have an iPhone and I have the Essential phone. I'm not going back to them for now. I'm going to continue on with this phone. What I will tell you is keep a charger handy. I think that goes without saying. But you know what you're getting into if you get this phone. And I think it's a great little phone for a great price if you can find it. Now, what I would recommend on that is there are a lot of open box versions of this that you can buy from eBay and Amazon. I would suggest going that route. I don't know if I would want to pay $300 for this phone. I understand that Palm needs to make money, and personally, I hope that there's another version of this later on. You know, like I said, this came out in November of 2018. I think they're going to have another version of it, and I welcome that, and I'd like to get it eventually. But I would recommend looking for it on the cheaper side, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be your main phone. You're probably not going to be like me and run it every single day. But to play around with it and to have it as a backup, or to have it as your side phone when you really don't want to use your big phone, or if you know your pockets are full or whatever you decide to use it for, it's really cool. And I've enjoyed my time with it, and I'm going to continue to use it as my regular phone for now. And we'll see where that goes. So I hope you enjoyed the review. Like I said, if there's any questions about it, just let me know. I know I didn't touch on absolutely everything with the phone, but I shoot these from the hip, so you kind of get what you get. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to make another video soon. And this has been Walkman Phones review of the Palm phone. Okay, guys, take care.